How many 4-letter words can I use on that?
Don't get taken down. Figure it out. Like, find a way to not get taken down, even if there's a minute left.
Oh, Nick, I'm a top guy, so I love top wrestling.
We have an amazing culture within our program, and you know, we build it. We don't buy it. We build it.
So I think that wrestling is the greatest sport on earth.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into On3 Wrestling. I'm your host, Nick Kosko, and with me today is Mr. Fast Twitch himself, AJ Ferrari, now of the Nebraska Cornhuskers. AJ, good to catch up with you, my man. Obviously, you've been with Nebraska in Lincoln for about a month now. You know, new locale for this coming season. It's the summer right now, so a little bit away from the college wrestling season, but you've been getting more adapted to Lincoln. So I got to ask first off, you know, how's been the first month of being in Lincoln for you?
It's been absolutely a blessing. You know, it's like I said in my past podcast, the interviews, everything, the positivity, so much positivity, not just around wrestling, but around all sports here. Everybody's just doing big things. The football team getting the huge recruits. And then the training table for me, you know, going up to heavyweight, the training table has been a blessing, being able to get all those calories in and not have to pay, you know, a fortune.
Absolutely. So as far as your training is concerned, I know you're putting on more weight. You know, you're obviously going back to the drawing board when it comes to wrestling as well. What's been the plan as of late? Are you just simply lifting right now, refining technique, doing a little bit of everything? What's going on over the past, 30 days or so?
Right now, it's been more process of just gaining good lean muscle mass and then retaining my speed, my agility, my technique in wrestling, my skills, you know, just refining them. That's really the biggest thing. You know, it's not about like right now in the off season about jumping. Like people think like in the off season you're gonna jump and you need to like train. Like for me, it's more technique, focused, details, improving small positions, getting better, getting new techniques. You got time to improve new skills, maybe develop even other skills that you don't really have. You know, change things up. You know, and then for me, obviously, put that good muscle mass on and just apply it to every aspect of my life.
How does that change for you when you're putting on more muscle mass? Obviously, you've been a 197 pounder your entire college career. You know, you probably walk around, a little over 200 pounds. You said recently you're up around 235, and you plan on getting a little bit bigger in terms of the muscle mass. How do you change things when it comes to your technique and refining things especially when you're getting bigger like that?
I think the biggest thing for me is just like don't change it. You know, like the things that made me win national championship, 197, and what won me Fargo in high school, won me Ironman, what took me third in the world, like my speed, my explosiveness, the way that I have my tenacity, right? That doesn't change. You keep that, you know, and I think that you see that, very similar thing. A great example, right, is John Jones, right? John Jones has the same speed, wrestling skills, agility at 285 when he fought those guys that he did when he was a light heavyweight and whenever, he was at that weight class. So for me, that's just like what I try to do is just like continuously improve. And for me, I want to just get big enough. The biggest thing is just the protection, not to get injured, because it's not that I can't beat these guys now at 225, 230 beforehand, right? But now I want to touch 255. So that way I cut down. I'm walking around 240, 245 when I'm competing and wrestling, just to have that layer of protection, even if it's a little bit of fat, it still cushions your body not to get injured, lower the chance of injury. Normally I'm shredded. Like this year at 197, I was like 5% body fat, like that's just like really, really unhealthy, honestly, how much I was and making the weight every week. Like one thing for like these MMA fighters, in UFC and one championship in Bellator, PFL, right? They're making weight maybe once every 3 months, right? We're making weight sometimes a couple times a week for extended periods of time for like 10, 20 weeks straight, so that can really take a toll on your body, especially. So that was a big decision with it as well, but obviously number one was, doing it for the team, Nebraska, having 6 returning All-Americans. The guy took 8, he snuck in All-American, as a freshman. And this year, a lot of the top guys are out. So the fact that he was able to All-American will definitely do better on that podium this year. And we need the team points. So our weakest weight was heavyweight for sure.
When you had those conversations with Coach Manning, I'll ask you more about him in a little bit. What was he just like? Yeah, get as big as you want. We have a plan for you, and this is where we want you at heavyweight. Were those some of the initial conversations when you eventually committed to Nebraska?
Some of the initial conversations were, he really supportive of me going, whatever weight I really wanted to go. He preferred me to go heavyweight. He knew it was best for the team. But he wasn't a coach like that was forcing me. Like Penn State was like forcing me, you have to go heavyweight. So like I think that's a big thing too. Is like I'm not here to try to just like say, oh, I'm the heavyweight guy, this and that. I prove it through my actions. It's a new year. I prove it through my wrestling skills, through my work ethic. So again, like I said, it was a selfless decision for me to go heavyweight for the team, and really do this. I always wanted to be the consensus, what do I say, greatest 197-pound light heavyweight wrestler of all time. But heavyweight right now, it just seems really like for me a great time to get big, especially with the train table, the way everything has aligned. God allows things to happen for a reason, and me leaving UNC, it's been such a blessing for me to be here. Nothing but great things to say about Rob Cole and the coaching staff, Tony Ramos, Coach Ben Darmstadt, Coach Enoch at UNC, but here it's just been not just the wrestling coaches that I've developed the relationships with, but the wrestlers, and I'm sure I would develop them with the guys there as well. But here it's just been like, as soon as I got even my official visit, everybody was like fired up to have me, and they were locked in. 'Cause it's different when you're going for a team title versus when you're maybe top 5, top 10, top 20 team. Like really, having the opportunity to, have a potential this year. I mean, really, we had a guy that took fourth as well. Having really realistically 4 or 5 national champions, on top of that podium. There's 5 guys that really could say this is my weight this year. Brock Hardy, some of those other guys like him that could definitely be up there and win a whole title and win everything. And just it's amazing to look to the right and see a guy winning for a national championship versus me doing it by myself. That's been the biggest thing for sure that I've just loved here. The camaraderie and the tight knit and the coaches don't sacrifice talent. You don't sacrifice character for talent. You see like some of these other programs have certain things arise. Like we were talking about, like it's funny because the first couple of days I got here, there's a whole thing going on about somebody get in trouble for stealing, I guess, in the locker room allegedly in the wrestling community. I'm not gonna say who, but the coach staff said like, yeah, this team is like so different. Like nobody does that. We don't cover any of that. We've never had in our lives, And I had like a $7,000 bracelet, and I just left it out for 2 days in the locker room, and nobody touched it. So
As far as the camaraderie is concerned, you've really embedded yourself with the team and the community. I've noticed you did a couple camps too. Tell me a little bit about, I guess, just getting to know your teammates and obviously building up that that trust and respect. And obviously, I get putting a face to the name as far as the Lincoln community is concerned.
Yeah, it was great. I love giving back. It was cool to not only do the camps, but also get to like just meet the kids, meet the fans here, and meet some of those type of people. It was a really great experience. I got to do Fargo camp for the women's cadet and junior team, and then Fargo camp for men's cadet and junior team. So that was just absolutely amazing to get to see them and really just tell them, what it takes to win a Fargo championship, and about the mindset, about just the lifestyle, increase your conditioning, and then just every area of your life, you just have to just like lock in. I feel like, these kids just, it's a different generation. If you have a mental tenacity, if you have a work ethic, and you apply it to every aspect of your life, cut corners, you're going to run people over in the sport of wrestling. That's what the beauty of wrestling and why it's the best sport.
Without a doubt. So I wanted to take a quick rewind. Obviously, you were at Cal State Bakersfield just last season, took third at the NCAA tournament out in Philadelphia. That was a program where I guess not many people expect you to end up last year when you made your return to college wrestling, and you were very open and honest about what that school did for you last calendar year. What can you say about them now, considering you've had a little bit more time to reflect? You're on to the next chapter to finish off your college career at Nebraska. What can you say about Cal State Bakersfield and your experience out there?
Amazing. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. The coaching staff there, Coach Luke Smith, just the biggest thing for me going there was just his belief in me, and his biggest thing with him was like, it wasn't like, oh, if you make one mistake, we're going to get you out of here. We're going to help you grow. We're going to give you these resources, not as much wrestling resources they had, but resources with people, real people that really care about me, that have been past wrestlers and in the wrestling community in that area. But they really helped me. Guys like Larry Morgan, Mr. Larry Morgan helped me a ton. Mr. Sean Crosswhite and a lot of other individuals as well. So I'm just really, really, really grateful for that, and it's just a huge, huge blessing to be able to, for me, grow spiritually with the Lord in my relationship with Jesus Christ. Versus growing just in wrestling at other programs that are maybe bigger. Like that's why here even like they've got a lot of FCA Bible studies here. A lot of guys talk about their relationship with Christ and in their mindset and the way they approach their day-to-day lives, and it was funny because there's one of the schools that I was gonna transfer to, right? That was one on the top of my list. And it's a school that's very, very, very known that people would know. It's a school that maybe I had some of this happened whenever I was supposed to transfer there, right? Basically, the coaches there were like they're talking about, I remember talking to me about like going to church and growing a relationship with Christ. They're like, yeah, that's great to do during the season, but that's to help your wrestling, And I was like, you go to church, you go and talk to fellowship with Jesus Christ followers because you do that to help you as a person. If you become a better wrestler, that's great, but you don't do it to become a better wrestler. So that was like a big thing here is like the coaches genuinely care about me as a person, regardless of the wrestling result. They know that I'm going to put the work in and I'm going to have the results happen, but they really care about you, in the heart. You can feel it, and their inner energy is unmatched, and like I said, it's just an amazing environment, not just wrestling skills wise, but character wise.
And because of that environment, as you mentioned, not just wrestling, but what they give to you off the mat and how you can, I guess, elevate yourself as a person. Is this a place where you envision yourself?
And accountability.
Yeah.
That's a big one too. Like even if I was came in here and I was a huge recruit, if they didn't, coach said if he didn't feel like I was a fit for the team, I wouldn't be here. He knows that I fit in perfectly because I don't just proclaim faith. I actually live it. That's a big thing. And not saying anybody that has made mistakes publicly is bad, but like people hang me for flipping off the fans at Iowa for making the mistakes and a BS thing that I had a while ago, which I was proven innocent, which was complete nonsense, but for me, it's like I get so much backlash and I have so many problems, but like other people are just like they're instantly like, oh, it's nothing, you know what I mean? So like, but like for me, like I don't really care because like I forgive those people. I don't judge them, like a lot of people, like, oh, I should point fingers because life's not fair, but like life isn't fair, man. It's just the way that is. I tell people all the time, if life was fair, you and me would have to go up on that cross and be perfect. So that's life,
Right.
and how you forgive others is how you be forgiven. If I don't forgive those people that still hate me to this day, how am I going to be forgiven for my trespasses, my mistakes? So that's just a big thing. And like I said, it just nothing to say about Cal State Bakersfield. Absolutely amazing experience with the coaches there. I developed some relationships with a lot of the mentors as well that I still stay in contact with. But it's chasing a team title now with same type of stuff. I have the same type of support here. And that's what separates Nebraska is they don't just have the camaraderie. They don't just have the wrestling skills and the willingness to win the team championships of that, but they also have the character and everything else to back it up. And they don't, the coaches hold people accountable. If you're messing up, if you're slipping up, they're going to hold you accountable. Even me, like the first couple weeks I've gotten here, Coach Devel Delagna was texting me saying, stay locked in. You just got here. You're a big recruit, but like, we got to have you on top of it. Keep coming to practice, keep training, keep lifting. Don't be going out. Don't get caught up in that. It's fine to be friends with a lot of the football guys, but stay locked in. And that's what I've been doing. That's what I'm gonna stay doing. And you just gotta, stay disciplined.
And because of that environment, just to kind of piggyback off what you just said and going back to my original question, which was, I'm not sure of your future plans, whether it's going to be chasing the Olympics, MMA, maybe both. Do you envision yourself being in Nebraska as far as a place where you finish your college eligibility, you stay at the RTC, and you maybe make that run for LA 2028? Is Nebraska that type of place for you?
I definitely think Nebraska is the place for that for sure. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think this is the environment, having Coach Devel Delagna, guy that really, has helped train a bunch of guys. He's been at that level, being an Olympic bronze medalist. Really should have been Olympic silver. There's only one other guy that placed higher than him. They just happened to give him a bronze medal because the two guys that were ahead of him, besides the other dude, got hit for juicing, for like real steroids. So, and just Mark Manning, James Green, Brian Snyder, so many great technicians, so many great minds, and mentors. So that's just it's amazing here. And then the support, like we said, in every aspect of everything else, they have crazy support here, when it comes to academically, like even academically, I have three people, one tutor to help me stay on top of my classes. I've got another to help me make sure I'm getting graduating with my credits, and they're locked in and loaded. Like these people text me on a daily basis, so sometimes people could say it's overbearing, but it's good to make sure you're staying on the straight and narrow. You got to stay on the straight and narrow. So yeah, I'm just blessed and grateful, and definitely, locked in on later on 2028 Los Angeles Olympics. But like right now, I'm just locked in on winning a team title and winning my individual title, at 285. So just take it day by day. That's why I tell people it's great to have goals and write them down, have aspirations. But if you do the day-to-day stuff, if you put the work in, the goals, the long-term result will come.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned that you're so locked in on this team title and winning a national title for yourself this year, trying to help the team win a national title. As far as freestyle is concerned, is that something that you're going to push to the side for now? Do you work on that a little bit, or when does freestyle come into play for you?
Freestyle I do year round, man. I train a
Yeah.
little freestyle as soon as the folk style finishes, and I come back to folk style. But for me, it's just getting big right now. Enjoying it,
Yeah.
continuing to get on the mat, moving my feet, developing new skills. Learning new stuff, and just getting better in every area of life. But yeah, folk style is really my focus right now.
Because of the lifting, I know your patented 675-pound deadlift is we're up to now. Is that going to hit 700 pounds at any point?
Yeah, we'll see. In 700 plus, maybe, we'll see. So we're going to drop some new t-shirts once I finish that. I've been just locked in. Everybody's been asking me for t-shirts, what I'm doing. I've just been so focused on my training and everything. I just haven't had time. But I'm going to get locked in on that. Hopefully, 665. I hit it 18 years old, 600-pound deadlift. My lifetime goal was always 700-pound deadlift to hit 675 this past year. And that was at a body weight also of 207 pounds.
Whew.
So I was lean. That was really honestly dangerous to do that during the season. So it's during the rest of the season, I'm making weight and I'm hitting that, and then yeah, I think 700 plus, no problem. Conventional deadlift, stay in good form. 700 should be a good one. I think just stay healthy and then just go down to like 650 and just do a bunch of reps.
Absolutely. It's funny you mentioned the t-shirts that, with NIL being such a huge thing over the last few years in college wrestling, obviously in college athletics in general, us at On3, we love talking about NIL and seeing the evolution of NIL. Maybe not just t-shirts. What's the NIL situation been like for you in Nebraska? With whatever you can share, how has that, I guess, maybe not affected your decisions, but how have you been able to deal with that over the last couple of years within the sport of college wrestling?
Right. Well, that was a big factor, right? So you see guys that are consensus making, NAL, right? NAL is such a big industry. Look at Bill Bassett was allegedly making, $4 million, $1 million a year at Iowa, So, and then you see him leave there because, I guess whatever happened there, I'm not going to speak on his behalf or on speak on Iowa's behalf, but something happened, something transpired between him and maybe his family and the coaching staff. But yeah, and then now he's leaving there and he's looking, I know, at some other programs. But like for me, it wasn't a money decision to come to Nebraska. Am I, getting, a great, amazing deal in NAL? Yes. But like the number one thing I look at on top of my list is not just NAL focus. If you're going around looking for the biggest deal, you're going to be around people that are just selling their soul for a dollar sign and not going to be in an environment you need to be around. And that just talks to I think the coaching staff here. They don't buy a culture. They don't pay for the culture to come in. You don't see them paying for recruits to come in. They create it themselves, and that's something that's legendary, and that's a legacy. That I don't think anybody has done like Nebraska. They may not have team titles the way that Penn State does, but they ain't got anybody being accused of theft in the locker room. They ain't got anything happening. Negativity wise in the locker room. Everything is positive. Even guys dressing at the weight class, even the guy other heavyweight here has been positive. Everybody's been positive to me. I mean, it's a whole entire just a complete essence of positivity in all sports, and that's what the Big Red is it's just everybody's just locked in on helping each other, being a camaraderie of Christ follower people, and that's just maybe being in Nebraska here in Lincoln. I just everybody I've met has been quality people.
When you speak about the positivity of Nebraska, I was going to ask you what really excites you about the team most this coming season. Obviously, on the mat, we see the success, a lot of guys coming back, including yourself now as part of the picture, chasing that team title. Is the positivity the thing that excites you the most about Nebraska this coming season?
I think what excites me the most is just the team camaraderie, not just the positivity, but how close knit and tight knit the team is. And I feel like I know these guys. I've been here for only a couple weeks, maybe coming up soon on a month, and I already feel like I know these guys, like very well. Like I develop relationships with them, especially guys like Cade Zayola. I'm good friends with him. We hang out quite a bit. A lot of football guys as well. Bodie, Eric, bunch of the football guys. Just all the dudes in the team. Antrell, all the guys, Brock Hardy, just so many great people on the team. I go through the list of everybody on the lineup who I've just been hanging out with and getting to know, and just all these dudes are just solid guys. It's not like anybody like, man, I don't like that guy. He's my teammate. It sucks to be teammates with him.
Yeah.
All the guys in the team are like guys like I like having friends around me. And that's cool to be around with. To have guys hang out with that you really trust and you have that are cool. So that's been something that I have really loved here. And then obviously, getting to dethrone Penn State and taking the team title is huge here with returning national champion Antrell, Brock Hardy, all these different guys, 165, 157. And then you got Silas Alred, and then you got the 97 pounder, and then you just have so many other dudes as well. A lot of big time recruits too. So it's just we're just locked and loaded, and we're
Yeah.
just ready to go. And we're just continuing to improve. That's it. And the environment here, like I said, is second to none. And that's why I'm here. And the NAL is great. The NAL is amazing. It's amazing to make money, sell T-shirts, get the biggest NAL deals, right? But if you're sacrificing money for a circle that's around you, and that's what I said too. It's one thing I like to tell people is
Mm.
I would not want to starve, to feast around someone that I wouldn't starve with, right? If I wouldn't want to starve with you, if you wouldn't starve with me, why am I going to feast with you?
I like that. I like that a lot. A couple more for you, AJ. And again, I appreciate your time today. Speaking of teammates, he's a teammate in your life, not a teammate physically, though, with Nebraska. Your brother, Angelo, obviously is over at Iowa. You guys wrestled them this year. You're not the same weight class, but I was always curious about that dynamic, considering you guys could have been teammates at one point. At this point now, when you're looking at him on the opposite sideline, black and gold singlet, what's that going to be like in terms of the dynamic where it's like, that's my brother, but hey, we're here to scrap today. Obviously not 1v1, but our team is here to beat your team this time today.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a funny thing how that, God allows things to happen the way they have, where me, Anthony, and my brother are all different locations, different places, but everything's a part of God's plan, and I'm just, happy that he's doing amazing there, If he connects with that environment, if he connects with those coaches and those wrestlers, right, that's amazing for him. Like different people have different personalities, people mesh with different people. So he's been doing great and amazing and massive things there. He's already number one in the country at 184 as a redshirt freshman. So that just speaks to his work ethic, his mindset, what he's doing over there, his training, and just his willingness to just like be locked in. Like I know he's just like so disciplined, so locked in, and that just speaks to why he's so many steps ahead of everybody else. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, he's my brother. So just like, listen, I think that me and him have tough love. We talk on the phone still quite often, and I give him crap about certain things. I say certain things, he says certain things back and forth. We bust each other's balls, but then the day we're trying to do the same thing. We're both
Yeah.
trying to win, individual and team titles. Being on two of the top three teams in the country. And my brother Anthony being at Morgan State. Him being there. And while he was there, just being around Kenny Monday, Olympic champion coach, trying to build that program up, so we're all around Olympic champion caliber coaches, so I think that for us it's just a matter of, us creating those relationships and developing our character in all areas of life, and it's just funny because, God works so many different ways, to allow things I feel like to just transpire, and everything's a lesson, everything's a learning opportunity, and everything God allows to happen for a purpose. He doesn't allow pain for no pleasure, for no purpose. Pain has its importance there, and that's why,
Yeah.
as it says in the book of James, you got to be, grateful for all the things you go through, all the trials and tribulations, because that allows your faith to become mature and complete, lacking nothing. So that's been just my journey, and that's been all of our journey. That's the big thing. Is like you see many people. We went to all these different high schools in high school. Like we didn't get kicked out of a single high school in high school. We decided to leave all those schools. We left Allen for a better opportunity at Blair for wrestling. We left Blair Academy because we didn't like what was going on there. It was a terrible environment, absolutely terrible what was going on. We went to Bergen Catholic. We were going to stay at Bergen Catholic. The only reason we left Bergen Catholic was because my parents wanted to see their grandparents for a year before I went off to college, so they were moving home anyway, which they live in Texas now. So that's why we left, and just a lot of different factors. And people just think that all these guys are just moving around nonstop. It's like, no. And in high school, we just were trying to, find the best wrestling environment for sure to improve our skills. But we didn't ever get kicked out of any programs.
Mhm. Before I leave you with this last question, I was actually curious because you just quoted it from the book of James, or at least alluded to it. Do you have a Bible verse that sticks out to you? I'm curious about that, especially the guys that really, try to practice and, really practice their faith on and off the mat. Is there a Bible verse that really sticks out to you these days?
Well, everybody knows about, the verse I mentioned at the NCAAs, right? It was Proverbs 3, verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your understanding. Verse 6, in all your ways acknowledge him and he shall direct your paths. And then verse 7, do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. So what is God saying? He's saying, don't trust in yourself, trust in the Lord. He's saying, lean not on your own understanding, lean on the Lord. So even with everything going on with me, having things going on, me not going to UNC, me being here, it's like, and everything, you gotta just trust God. God doesn't say you have to understand it. He just says you have to trust him. And then you have to fear him and depart from evil. So that's the verse I love. And then another one was just James is talking about James chapter 1 about, consider it pure joy, brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials and tribulations of many kinds, knowing that those trials and tribulations will allow your faith to become mature and complete, lacking nothing. Because that's the thing is, like, a lot of people think, oh, I serve God, I do all these things. I pray, I fast, I live a clean lifestyle. I repent of my sins, right? I deserve all of this. But realistically, people have to remember, we serve God. God doesn't serve us. Ultimately, all of us deserve death. The only reason we're allowed to get into God's kingdom and we have salvation is because of Jesus Christ's sacrifice. So a lot of people don't, fully comprehend that and fully accept that into their lives. They believe in God, but they're not obedient to him. I always tell people believing in God is step one. Even the demons believe in God. They just directly disobey him. So that's just a big thing. I feel like is reading the word, but not just reading the Bible and going to church and going through the motions, actually applying it. It's almost like in wrestling. You got the guys that go through the motions in practice. They're just there to be there. They're just there to get out. They check in, they check out. If your relationship with Christ is like that, it's not going to be real. It's not about religion. It's about relationship. And realistically, you got to hold yourself accountable. You got to look in the mirror and say, man, I'm doing this wrong. I got to work on this. I know for a big thing for me for a long time, I always made excuses, was working on cursing. I always, I'm lifting heavy weights. I can slip in a couple curse words here. I'm doing this. I can listen to a couple curse words songs that I'm lifting weights. But that's been a big thing for me to work on, is just controlling what goes in your mind, channeling it, because everything starts with a thought. The first thing before it becomes an action is a thought.
And putting all that together, I'll leave you here with this one. Putting all your on the mat success, your off the mat success right now over in Lincoln. What ultimately do you want your legacy to be when you leave Nebraska and when you're done college wrestling in a couple of years?
I want my legacy to be, just my relationships I have with people. I want us to be able to have relationships. And I tell people this all the time, like people that get married, right? You can't truly love someone if you don't first love the Lord more than anything. You can't love, your father, your mother, your dog, a national championship, a friend. You can't love anybody or anything more than the Lord. And that's what I want my legacy to be, my relationship with God, that, hey, this guy, grew up strong in his faith, but hey, maybe he, got pulled in the wrong direction by some certain things. Certain things happen, he learned from those mistakes, but that is what the salvation is. The fight against lust, the fight against vanity, the fight against pride, that is the salvation. The struggle, fighting that flesh is how we show and we prove our salvation and eternal life with the Lord. So that's what I want my legacy to be. But at the end of the day, I don't need to just like proclaim it all the time. I like to tell people things just to like help people out, just to be the friend they need to have, not the friend they want to have necessarily. I'm sure a lot of people get rubbed the wrong, man, this guy's always talking about Jesus Christ, he's always talking about faith. But it's like, man, it's just real. And like whenever you have the experiences that I experience, like, it's just like there's so much that I've just learned, and there's never losses. As long as you're learning from your mistakes, they're never losses, even if you lose anything, even if you lose everything. Sometimes for some people it takes hitting rock bottom to really, look in the mirror and really make these changes, and for me, it took me being isolated, and it took me, not having family and friends around me, and me going into war with the man in the mirror, you know, and holding myself accountable. And really, first, you got to want to make these changes, and you got to admit that there's a problem, right? That you have a
Right.
problem with certain things, right? That you need to fix them, right? And everybody has problems to this degree, but you have to really, you know, hold yourself accountable and say, I want to fix these things. You know, I want to truly repent, and repent just doesn't mean just saying, oh, I'm sorry. It means actually changing your thought process and the way you live and the way you act.
Mhm. I like hearing that a lot. AJ, I appreciate your time today. Thanks for joining me. Anything you want to plug before we sign off here?
Yeah, there's a big red Ferrari coming through in Lincoln, Nebraska. So it's going to be really amazing to, you know, be a part of the big red here for the wrestling team. And I'm just locked in and loaded, bro. Thanks for having me on. I enjoyed being on here, Nick. And I know you have a great thing going on. I know you've had a ton of people on. So I'm just happy to join all the listeners, join all the people on the group of people we have, because I know you have great individuals, great group. So nothing but great things to say about you, Nick. And thanks for having me on, brother. We'll be in touch. And but yeah, also quick question before we bounce. Are you Italian, by the way?
I am.
Yes, sir.
Straight from Jersey, brother.
Nice, good stuff, good stuff. Fellow Italian, fellow Paisan. So
That's right.
we're
The
on
pot,
on that. Let's
Pisons, yeah.
go.
I don't have muscles like you, but I can get a little bit. So
Let's go.
we're almost there. if I
Let's
build another
go.
20 pounds of muscle, we'll get there.
Let's go.
All right. AJ Ferrari with me right here on On3 Wrestling. Be sure to check out his social media on Twitter and Instagram. Be sure to follow our social channels at On3 as well. We'll see you next time.